Hello, Jim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Who else is here today? Neil, hi Neil, that's my son in San Diego. Thank you so much for joining. All right, I am so excited to be holding my second. And Linda, thank you so much. Linda, where are you from? Well, when you tell me later, I'll acknowledge it. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining me for my second Facebook Live event. And today's topic is going to be one that people have requested since the whole coronavirus scare happened. And that is how to talk to your children about the coronavirus. So I put some notes together that I'd like to share with everybody to be helpful. And I'd like you to write in your questions. I might answer them as we go along. Linda from East Haven, thank you. Or I might answer them at the end of this Facebook Live. Now, I was going to try to talk about how to talk to your children about the coronavirus, and then if I had time, talk to you about making working from home work while your kids are home. But I have a feeling I'm not going to have enough time for that today. But rest assured, we'll be having another one of these for a lot of other ones of these. And we'll be able to cover that material as well. So let's get started. As adults, we are all scrambling to try to make sense of what's going on today and in the new, it's a new world. And we have to remember, because sometimes we forget, that our children are scrambling too. And their whole world has been turned upside down as much as ours has been. Thank you for that like.
Here today.
And we have another device. That's okay. So what I wanted to talk about is that we need to remember that children take their cues from us. So they are watching us very carefully, not only what we do during this crisis, but how we feel and how we make them feel. So what I want everybody on the call to remember is that in a shorter time than we can imagine, 2 months, definitely within a year, definitely within 5 years, our children really will not remember the nuances and the details of the coronavirus, but they will undeniably remember how we made them feel during that crisis. So I want you to keep that at the front of your mind as you hear me talk about talking to your children, and then for the rest of this pandemic, okay? So here's some of my tips, and I have 10 of them. Some of them overlap, it's okay. So the very first thing that you need to remember when you're talking to your children is, as always, it starts with you. So be very clear and be very sure on what you're feeling, and that you have a grip on your feelings. So if you are feeling really anxious or really fearful or out of control and beside yourself during this situation, that is not the time when you need to talk to your children. You need to get a grip, get control, be aware of what you're feeling, have your anxiety, have your fears, have all your negative emotions in check when you speak to your children. Because if there is a discrepancy between what you say and how you feel, your children will pick up on it. For example, if you're really anxious and scared, and you say to them, look, everything's gonna be okay, I promise, everything's gonna be okay. Well, I don't know about you, but as I heard myself say that, I didn't hear everything is going to be okay. I felt anxious as if Armageddon was right around the corner. Okay? So make sure you are in control of your feelings before you have a conversation with your children. And this is true for any time we talk to our children about anything. So you want to be able to speak to them so that you can give them a calming and reassuring message. Very, very important. Who else is here today? I'd like you to log in and let me know so I can say hello and thank you for joining us for this really important topic. The second thing, and this might seem like, as my son on the call would say, Captain Obvious, but have the conversation. Some people think that they're better off not talking to their child about it because they'll raise their concern, and if they raise their awareness of the situation, that will make them more frightened or more anxious. And in fact, nothing but the opposite can be true. Children tend to worry when they know something is going on and people aren't talking to them about it. Their fears get carried away and they're like, I know things are changing. I know I'm not going to school. I know my parents aren't going to work. I know all my after-school activities have been canceled and I can't even leave my house and nobody is talking to me about it. So make sure that you have the conversation with them. And like I said, it sounds really obvious, but it's really important. When we tend to not talk about things that frighten us or that we think are bad, and children pick up on that. So it's really important, otherwise you will make them feel worse and make them feel more insecure. Okay, so by having the conversation with your child, the other thing that happens is it gives you the opportunity to inform them with fact-based information, with honest, accurate information that's probably much less sensational and much more accurate than what they heard from their friends or in the media. And when you have the conversation, it gives you the opportunity to be the filter for them. Just think about all the misinformation that your kids learned on the school bus or walking to the school with their friends, okay? So if you don't talk to them about the coronavirus situation, they probably already have information that's probably not accurate and it's probably causing them some concern. So take the opportunity, make sure you have the conversation. You will absolutely make them feel better just by your very nature of talking to them about it. The third tip I have is, and again, it seems obvious, but sometimes we forget when things are stressed, is to make sure that you provide age-appropriate information. So you want to give your children accurate and honest information based upon their level of understanding. Usually, younger children need you would provide much less information, and older children, you would give them more information. But you have to give them information that they can process and absorb and make sense of. If you give them too much information, which we sometimes tend to do as adults, because really, even though we're keeping it in check, we are feeling somewhat anxious about what's going on in the world today. If we give children too much information, what we do is, the concept is called flooding. We're flooding them, and then they feel overwhelmed, and we're defeating the purpose of why we're speaking with them. So make sure that the information is age appropriate. The younger the child, the less information that you can give them. And the other thing that I wanted to share with you is that when you're giving children age-appropriate information, make sure you let them know that all the media, all the news outlets, the things they're reading on the internet, in the newspapers, on TV, on their phone, in the blogs, right? All of a sudden, your neighbor next door who was a butcher is now an expert in the coronavirus, right? So make sure you tell your child that you are giving them information, and you would, if they're older, that you would only want them to get information from reliable sources. And honestly, the absolute best and really the only source that you need to go to get information on the coronavirus is the CDC. It is absolutely tried and true. Everything else might be rumor, might be speculation, might be hearsay. So you always, like any other type of information we get today, because it's a 24/7 news cycle, you have to constantly feed the beast. Thank you for whoever gave me that heart. And you want to make sure that you don't feed into the fear mongering. So make sure you know where you're getting information. And then always, and in this situation, the only thing my stamp of approval is for the CDC. Very, very important. When Dr. Fauci talks on TV, Anthony Fauci, who, by the way, I have to throw this in, is a former Brooklyn boy. Let's hear it for the Brooklyn crowd, if there's anybody else out there besides yours truly. My son is probably cracking up now. Somebody like that is an expert. They're an authority. You can listen to them too. And my guess is he's the one giving the information to the CDC. So make sure the information is age appropriate, and remind your children that if they hear information other than what you shared with them, tell them that it's probably not true. And as you're providing them the information, ask them if they've heard something similar. Did they hear something different? Like, ask them for their feedback and their thoughts on what you're telling them. And again, the younger the child, the less type of a conversation you'll have. The older, you might actually be able to have a discussion. But older children have a better time of understanding the difference between fact and fiction if you point it out to them. Younger children will most often believe what you tell them, which is why we have to tell them, because it could be scary. When it comes to information about the coronavirus, let me just throw this in at this section. I was going to put it in later on, but it doesn't really matter. Kids desperately want to know what the heck this thing is. They don't know. So you want to let them know that it's a virus, it's a new disease, we've never had it before, but it's really a lot like the flu. And people that get the flu usually just get a little sick. People don't die from the flu. It's very popular. A lot of people get it. And but there was a time when the flu would make you much sicker. So now the coronavirus is like a new type of flu. And even though some people do get very ill, most people don't get very ill. And in proportion to the world, it's a very small percentage of people that get very, very ill. Now, for the listeners, I am not minimizing for 1 second the tragedy that's going on with people becoming very sick and dying with the coronavirus. I'm not. But that is a small percentage of the people that are getting the coronavirus. So we don't want to feed into the fears of children. That's unnecessary, okay? So you want to let them know that it's a new virus, and yes, people can get sick. They might ask you, and you'll answer them in an age-appropriate way how you get it. So you'll talk to them about coughing and touching surfaces is basically the way we can get it. And I'll give you strategies on helping them with that later on. But for now, if they ask when you're talking to them, that's what you want to tell them. Children might also ask about, we see people wearing masks. How come we're not wearing masks? And in spite of, superheroes that wear masks, when children see people wearing masks, it looks frightening to them. So what you would say to them, I wouldn't bring it up to them unless they bring it up. But if they ask you, why are some people wearing masks and why not, say that the CDC does not recommend everybody to wear masks, only some people, certainly healthcare workers, but the people that are wearing them are taking extra safe precautions. So you don't want to minimize the value of it for the people that have it, but you don't want your child to feel afraid that they should have something to keep them safe and they don't have it. So hopefully that will make sense to you. Now, this is one of my favorite tips for talking to parents. Oh my goodness, my sister is on from New City. Hi, Carolyn. And Patty from Channel 3. WFSB came on. Thank you so much for coming on this event. I'm so excited to have you here, Patty. Okay, so this tip is one of my favorites. And if you were on my first call, you might have heard me talk about it just for a little bit, but I want to go into some more detail now. A really great way to speak to your child about the coronavirus is to ask them to draw a picture. Carolyn, I know you have about 27 million grandchildren, so you can ask them this. Patty, I know your daughter would love to do this. Ask them to draw a picture of what they heard about the coronavirus. At this point, don't ask them what they feel, don't ask them what they think. Just ask the child, and this is for all ages, this is applicable for all ages. Ask them to draw a picture of what they heard about the coronavirus. And then walk away, or if you have to supervise them, don't be over their shoulder. Don't ask them what things are as they're drawing. Have them draw it, and then say, let me know when you're finished. And when they bring the picture to you, put it down, and then say to them, now you don't want to lead the witness, okay? So when they're finished drawing, what I want you to say to them is, tell me about your picture. That's it. Just ask them to tell me about your picture. Don't ask them to tell you what they feel or anything. Let them tell you the story, and then based upon the information that they share with you, then you can ask them how they're feeling, what they think about it, what are their concerns, and you will get an entire window of information from this drawing. This is a really great tool. I recommend this tool with other issues with children. For young children, it's great because they have limited verbal ability. For older children, it's safer because they're drawing, and then they can reveal what they choose to reveal. But sometimes you'll get information anyway, and then you can ask them to expand on what this meant. You want to ask an open-ended question. Expand on this. I'm not sure what this is. Can you tell me more about it? This is a really great tool that will give you insight into what they're feeling and what they're thinking. Okay, what else do I have? And how they're emotionally handling the situation. All right, another tip that's part of age-appropriate conversation is, and this is really important. Oh, hi, Christopher, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Avoid language that places or criticizes others, all right? So you want to tell people that the coronavirus is a flu and that anyone can get it, most people recover from it, and our lives go on normally. What's going on a little bit, and kids are hearing this, is that people are feeling ashamed to let their family, their work, their community know that they have the coronavirus. I actually was on the phone today with a client, and she's a corporate worker, even though they're working from home now, and someone in her family contracted the virus, and she was petrified to tell people. She didn't want to feel blamed. She didn't want to feel ostracized. So be very careful when you and aware of letting your children know that it's nobody's fault. Doesn't matter where it came from. What we need to be able to do is to address it and make people better. And children will take comfort in that because they don't want to be afraid. They don't want to be blaming. It's a negative feeling. All right, the fifth tip that I want to share with you is to, similar to what I was saying about where they're getting their information, you really need to be cognizant. You really need to be aware of, oh, Michael Kelleher, hi. What family members? Thank you. You really want to be aware of what your children are watching, reading, seeing, hearing on the internet, on TV, on radio, on YouTube. I mean, the source of information is endless. And let your child know that too much information is not always good for you because, as I said earlier, many times it's false. And you really want to limit their exposure because just too much information, it's overwhelming. We get flooded. We reach a saturation point. We know that from ourselves. Even if you love information, we get to a point where we can't take any more in. And when it's with something like this situation with health, it can feel scary and it doesn't make you feel safe. So a little bit of information can be reassuring. And then there's a tipping point where it's too much and you feel worse for it. All right. The next thing, again, it sounds like common sense, but don't feel like you have one conversation with your child about the coronavirus and then you're done. You want to continuously communicate. So have a conversation and see how that goes. Again, age appropriate. And then let your child know if new information arises. If we find out something that you need to know that would be helpful, that is important for us to all know, we absolutely will let you know. And then also say to them, and if you hear something that you think you're not sure about, it doesn't sound right, maybe it sounds right, or maybe it sounds scary, anything, come to us and let us know, and then we can find out together. So you want to make a joint effort so the child doesn't just feel like, all right, I had one conversation and now what's new, 2 days, a week, a month later. Especially if they're still not in school, you're still not back at work, and the environment overall just feels charged, which is the best word that I would use. The 7th tip I have is it's all about the kids. For kids, it's all about them. So when they hear about something going on, they right away go to, oh, maybe that will happen to me too. Now, I don't know if you know anybody that's ever been in medical school, but the joke in medical school is that with every disease that the medical students learn about, they all think they have it. So the whole joke is I have every itis in the medical book, because when they study it, they identify with it and then they're afraid that they have it. Well, children, because their ego is not yet fully developed yet, that's a natural place for them to be, right? If a child, think about before the coronavirus, if a child would hear that somebody was sick in school or somebody in their family was sick, they would worry, and maybe they would say to you, am I going to get sick too? Or if somebody's relative passes away, they'll say, well, will someone in my family pass away, right? They're egocentric. So you have to let them know, you can reassure them that although the world is hyper-focused on the coronavirus now, it's really a very small population that gets it. And just as importantly, it's an even smaller population that gets very sick from it. And this will be very reassuring for them, okay? And let's see, Sarah, thank you for being on. And Janine, thank you for being on. Let's see who else is here. And Jeannie, thank you so much. I'm so glad everybody's on because this really is an important topic. The next thing that you want to make sure you tell your kids is your kids are going to ask you if they can get it. They will also ask you, or they might not ask you, but they also will be wondering, can you get it as a parent? And again, go with honesty, which the truth is probably not. And if you got it, probably it would be just like the flu or a bad cold, right? Then give them a bunch of analogies that they can understand. For example, you can say to them, we drive everywhere in the car. I drive you to school, you take a bus to school, we go on airplanes. We do so much traveling in cars, in buses, on planes. You hear of accidents and people dying, but most people don't. Like millions and millions of people drive every day, fly every day, and they're all safe. So make an analogy like that that a child can relate to, and that will be very calming to them. Okay, so now, what can you do to help your children be reassured, feel like that they're not totally out of control with this situation? Children find routine very comforting. That is why it's important to have a bedtime with children. People love rituals. They take comfort in what's predictable. So even though everybody is home, it's really important that you have some kind of a routine, some kind of a schedule for your children, because they will find comfort in it, all right? And I'll talk just a little bit about that in a little bit longer. So, a couple of minutes. So, when you start your day, and when you start your child's day, and share this with them, say, even though you're not at school, even though you're not at work, you know, life still goes on, you still have to learn. All right, maybe not as much as when they're in school, but that's not the point, right? We just want to get through this. And you still have to go to work. So, we still have to have a routine. So what I'm telling people is to get up, get dressed, and get going. Now, I realize with teenagers this might be a little bit different, but you don't want them in their pajamas all day. You don't want to be in your pajamas all day. Now, you don't have to be dressed like you would to go to work or like they would to go to school. You can wear sweatpants, whatever. But you do want to give some sense of a routine and familiarity that they can recall, that they can recognize. It gives them comfort. So you want the structure to be age-appropriate school learning, right? With scheduled meal times, scheduled break times, and scheduled bedtimes. Now let me say that with the caveat of within reason, okay? Yes, we have to be more flexible. You have to be a little bit more loosey-goose, no doubt about it. But overall, you don't want your house to be running with the kids, the inmates running the insane asylum. You want them to have some predictability. It's very important. It's very comforting to them, even if they complain about it. It's like children want limits set on them. They want boundaries. It's very important. They feel not safe. They will feel out of control if there's no schedule. If every day feels like a Sunday, then all of a sudden Sundays aren't special anymore, right? So we want them to feel as if life is going on for them and for you. So we want, the last tip, the 10th tip is you want to empower your child with things they can do to stay safe and stay healthy, okay? So children, just like adults, we feel comforted when we can take action, right? When something happens, everybody is on this call thinking, well, what can I do? How can I help, right? Doing something, taking action makes us feel good. So with children, what you want to do is to tell them what we said earlier, that coughing and touching surfaces, touching doorknobs, stuff like that, all of that is how you can get this virus. Even though you probably won't get it, that is how it's transmitted. So what you can do, and again, this is age appropriate, is wash your hands. And for the younger children, you reinforce, you already know this, right? And then teach them the proper way to hand wash, right? And I think by now people have all seen it. 20 seconds, you sing happy birthday twice. Every person on the planet knows happy birthday, right? You wash between your fingers, you wash the tips of your fingers, you wash the top of your fingers. And you can have, all right, this might sound funny, but you can have a hand washing party. Like younger children will love that. And older children, even if they're looking at you like, something's wrong with you, they will be watching because they want to be safe too, okay? So reinforce that. Reinforce that it's really important to keep doorknobs, light switches, handles, things clean, and let them help you with that. You'd be surprised if they think they're going to get sick by touching something. Even kids won't touch it, but if they have to touch it, they'll want to make sure it's clean. And what this does is allows them to partake in their own safety, and it will be really, really comforting for them. And they get to play a role. All right, so it's a little after 4. I said the call was going to be till 4 o'clock, but I just have 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay. Have plenty of hand sanitizers. 5 what? Somebody's telling me 5 minutes more? It's 5 o'clock. I'm sorry. You know what? I never changed my watch. Duh. Okay. So You want to have plenty of hand sanitizers around. And again, show the children how to use it. Remind them the proper way to cough into their sleeve or a tissue. And then they say, take the tissue and don't leave it, throw it on the floor, throw it in the garbage. Honestly, I like tissues to go in the toilet and flush them. Maybe that's me being just a little weird, I don't know. But tell the kids that, that's really important. Again, it's something they can do. Remind them to try to avoid touching their face and their nose and their mouth and their hands. Don't make like, don't touch it, because the research says like we touch our hands like so many times in the course of a minute, you'd be shocked. So we don't, especially younger children, we don't want them to touch their hand and then become petrified that they're going to get the coronavirus, all right? So just say try not to, and if they do, it's okay, you know, they can wipe. So just teach them the good healthy habits. And I think that's about it for today. So I hope you found this helpful. I'm actually going to write an article, and I post all of this information on LinkedIn. That's a professional page. If we're not LinkedIn, please link in with me. But I probably also will have it up on Facebook and maybe on Instagram and all the other sites where I have a lot of social media. And please post any questions that you might have for me here or on my Facebook page, really probably my Facebook page. And then I know I will be on, Patty's still on, sorry, I'll be on Channel 8 tomorrow, I think, speaking about how to calm your anxiety about surrounding the coronavirus. I was just on Fox and Friends this past weekend talking about that. And there'll be a lot of more information coming here. So my next Facebook Live event, I'm not sure when it will be, but it will be on the topic of making working from home work for you while the kids are home. Okay, everybody, be well.